So I have 4.5 years experience in acoustics and occupational hygiene. I currently work part-time at ACOM as an acoustic consultant. I did at Derby University MSc in Applied Acoustics and the Institute of Acoustics postgraduate diploma in acoustics and noise control. And I started off doing a BSc in music technology and production. I'm an associate member of the Institute of Acoustics, and in January I was diagnosed with ADHD, and in April I was diagnosed with autism, which sparked the interest in this project. So a bit of background. So it's believed that 1 in 7 people in the UK are neurodivergent. That's approximately 9.5 million people. Of those 9.5 million people, it's believed that 2.6 million have ADHD, and 700,000 of the 9.5 are autistic. Williams, Kashka, and Wojnarowski state that it's believed that 50 to 70% of autistic individuals suffer from decreased noise tolerance or hyperacusis. And oh, sorry, I'll just accept this person. Sorry. And that neurodivergent and noise sensitive individuals are currently not covered or represented in environmental noise guidance or methodology. Sorry. Yeah. So why is this project important? So at the moment, there's a lack of inclusivity in society. This lack of inclusivity primarily is that a lot of autistic people with hyperacusis or noise sensitivity may find it difficult to go to a lot of environments in which the noise is a massive factor in how comfortable or uncomfortable they are. This could be town centres, this could be just walking along the side of a road. There's a definite need for understanding. At the moment, a lot of guidance given to people with hyperacusis or autism who are autistic people who are sensitive to noise would be to wear noise cancelling headphones, wear earmuffs, ear defenders, or go to quieter areas. And there's quite a large safety issue. An example of this would be that control of noise at work regulations state that you cannot overprotect yourself using hearing protection in a workplace, which is what I deem a controlled environment. You know where the issues are. It's quite easy to kind of mitigate these issues knowing how to. However, in an uncontrolled environment, for example, a town centre, you don't really know where the noise source is going to come from, how loud it's going to be, and what the overall issue is. But at the same time, wearing ear defenders, wearing noise cancelling headphones creates an additional issue of, well, problems. You won't hear alarm systems, you might not hear a car beep at you. You could walk out into a road thinking that, yeah, perfect, it's a red light. Actually, the car's trying to beat an amber light, and it's increasingly difficult to understand what the issue could be, and being able to predict that would be difficult as well. So what has been done so far, and why has this not been done before? So a lot of acoustics, for environmental acoustics, is based off of the Fletcher-Munson curve, so equal loudness contours that were published in 1929. These are used to then create the A-weighting curve, which a lot of acoustic consultants use. ISO 226 in 2023, which has been recently updated, was released. However, this is titled now the normal equal loudness level contours, which gives a slight hint towards there being differences. And this is also focusing on a range of people, male and female, between 18 and 25. And then over the last near 100 years, well, this was from 2003. This is the difference between the Fletcher-Munson contours and the 2003-226 contours. However, I think there is a slight difference. I just don't have a graphic for it for the 2023 contours as well. So the things that have also been done towards this project is the loudness discomfort levels. So these were assessed using one first octave audiology and subjective questioning for if the person felt discomfort. These show up to 20 dB difference in some areas, 30 dB in others at certain frequencies. However, they don't perfectly match over the frequency ranges measured, which indicate there may be a frequency kind of component that might cause a difference. There's been a project by McLennan, which is the sensory environment assessments for internal public spaces. This is internal, so a lot of supermarkets, office buildings, looking at certain changes or differences that may cause issues, specifically supermarkets turning music off for autistic individuals at a certain time of the day. This then decreases the overall baseline or ambient level of the space, and then will in turn cause all other like impact impulsive noises to become more dominant. This could cause an additional issue. And then Arup's Aural Diversity Toolkit was released in 2024. This covers internal spaces once again. However, how to adapt them from an architectural and acoustics point of view. It also covers certain documents that have been adjusted for aurally diverse individuals. So an assessment overview. So to start off with, we're going to be recruiting a focus group. This focus group will be used to refine the assessment methodologies, questionnaires, any specific ethical changes that need to be made for the vulnerable group that we're going to be looking at. Then the assessment recruitment. So this will be looking initially at 40 individuals for a neurotypical normal hearing group, so a control group, and then a neurodivergent group as well. So 40 individuals, a mixture of genders, ethnicities, but this will be specifically due to we're going to be doing assessment phases. So phase one will be the first octave audiology assessment. This is more a screening process just to check if there's any noise-induced hearing loss, if there's any other auditory issues that may cause issues with results in the following phases. Phase two, this is going to be looking at a third octave equal loudness contour assessment, specifically seeing if there is a frequency component of an autistic or hyperacusis frequency range. And the last phase, is going to be, there's two parts, but there's going to be the acceptable baseline noise assessment. This is going to be looking at increasing a soundscape in a spatial audio setting. So I believe it will be the spatial audio booth, which is a 16-channel third order ambisonics room. This will be bringing the level up to what would be the recorded level and looking at physiological results, as well as a noise characteristics assessment. So this could include a lot of different things, including impulsivity, tonality, continuous noise, intermittent noise, and this was slightly inspired by British Standard 4142 industrial noise assessment, in which corrections for annoyance are applied for these. We'll also look at other noise characteristics to see if there's any that haven't been included that affect anyone with hyperacusis or autism. And then hopefully, depending on the results from the three phases and the focus group, drafting a guidance document that can be used by consultancies and different local authorities to help with consistency across the board. Physiological measurements are going to be done throughout each individual assessment. So these being galvanic skin response, which are two sensors that apply to the skin. This tests for electrical conductivity in sweat, I believe, I think was the main one. But alongside heart rate, not using a smartwatch, this was just for a representation. However, we'll look for something that's non-invasive, make sure that the people who are actually doing the assessments are comfortable, because we wouldn't want to stress anyone out just by the equipment that we're using. And then these two combined will show hopefully a level of discomfort if there is discomfort, or a level of relaxation if it was to be helpful frequencies, not unhelpful, like discomforting. How could this study solve the issue? So there'll be a creation of a hyperacusis weighting curve. so H weighting, for sound level meters and incorporation into assessment methodology for building and environmental noise. Guidance on acceptable background levels from differing environments external to any buildings. Knowledge of the impact of different noise characteristics, which I believe will be quite a interesting one due to, at the moment, reducing a lot of the noise levels in buildings to practically nothing. This will hopefully either show if that's helpful or not. And then identification of trends for hyperacusis frequency range. This could be used to create a filter. So instead of using noise cancelling headphones, you'll use a filtered headphone or a filtered a filtered hearing protection, and that could then be incorporated either into workplaces to make it more accessible for individuals to be in workplaces that they normally wouldn't be allowed in due to either the hyperacusis or being overprotected from the noise in that environment. And then finally, a guidance document created to assess neurodivergent and noise sensitive individuals. So the impact of the study: it'll improve inclusivity, either in the workplaces or just in making it comfortable for individuals to be able to go into areas in which the noise would be a reason they wouldn't go before. It'll improve knowledge and understanding to see if there is a frequency dependent a frequency aspect of hyperacusis that we could then pinpoint and try and mitigate. And at the same time, it improves safety, reduced usage of, or like more understanding of this condition, and reducing the use of noise cancelling headphones and or overprotecting the individual in a town centre would be a great thing, because it would just improve the safety of the individual and make them more comfortable. And then it kind of links back into the improving inclusivity section. Has anyone got any questions?
Thank you, Stephen. I think we've got a few minutes for questions. Does anyone like to ask a question?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Stephen. The creation of a sort of H weighting curve, that suggests to me that you're thinking that hyperacusis could basically be modeled as a just, I don't know, a different kind of gradient on the sort of loudness response. Would that be right? So if I suppose I'm thinking of a sort of dose response curve, and you know, we think we know what the relationship between intensity and loudness is for, you know, so-called typical individuals, and what you're thinking that it might be different for people with hyperacusis. Is that right?
Pretty much. I think well, if there's any specific resonances, a kind of like a way I've looked at it at the moment is that if it is kind of like, there's two ways it might turn out, is that there's either more sensitivity around where, say for example, we have a resonance anyway between 1 and 5K for like human voice, and I think in a lecture the other week it was a 3.5K resonance of the ear canal. If it's a resonance of that range, then obviously testing a lot of things, for example, a reference of 1K as a test tone, and then going off of that, it might show a difference. But then with the other end of it, and I think Antonio mentioned this earlier, it could just be high frequency, kind of like an incline of high frequency. But at the same time, I think having like a H weighting curve, it's more kind of like it will show a more dramatic result in a lot of measurements, but at the same time, it will kind of like be a point in which they'll be able to, well, any consultancy will be able to look at the weighting curve to see without having to mess around too much, a specific kind of range in which, like for example, A weighted, we can look at that and we can kind of put corrections to it straight away. If it's not been recorded in an A weighted sense, we can then apply corrections using the H weighted curve, even if it's not on the SLM, to then show what the impact would be for someone with hyperacusis autism that isn't specifically frequency specific, as in we could look at the frequency range throughout an entire measurement and say, look at pinpointed moments in which we've got notes, and then see, oh, there was a resonance of, I don't know, 12K at this point. It will take a lot more time than just increasing and seeing kind of like a range, and then having the kind of, what's the word? The increased level to pinpoint these areas as well in comparison to A-weighted. Kind of like, like, for example, anytime that I've downloaded a sound level meter, there's always a Z-weighted, A-weighted, or C-weighted, and you can see the difference in the level, even though you wouldn't suspect there'd be a difference. The thing is with, say, I don't know, I think I know one person in acoustic consultancy who has any form of hyperacusis where they're quite sensitive to sound. They might be able to see it before anyone else, but for everyone else who isn't orally diverse, it might be a better indicator, I guess, to show the difference in level anyway. Sorry. I don't know if, did I answer your question? Sorry.
No, that's good. That's a very full response. Thank you.
Sorry.
So, Lorenzo, you're up next.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
So,
That was really great.
so. Is this connected? Sorry, I thought it was connected to the
I need to
yeah.
Sorry, guys. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute.
So,
Sorry.
Yep. I hope.
I hope so too.
Save the pictures for my holidays.
Yeah. Interesting. Right.
Okay.
I think we need to share the screen. Is that right? Have you got sound in the presentation?
Yeah, I got a couple of audio samples, but I can skip there.
That's fine. Should be all right. Okay.
Do I use the mouse to?
Yes, or you could press the space bar as well.
Okay.
Okay, so next up we have Lorenzo, second of our 3 presentations. So over to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm gonna talk to you about my project, which has a provisional title as a hearing loss in the audio mixing community. So basically, the main theme is about researching issues about hearing loss within the audio engineering, audio production community. Okay, and understand if something can be done to swerve the audio mixing community to work more, keeping into consideration the part of the population that have hearing loss rather than the general public. So the issue of hearing loss in music is pretty well known, but there's a series of thematics that can combine to create lots of different problems. Most of which include losing the ability of perceiving sound pitch or having different sound pitch perceptions in each ear, having to raise the volume of music while working due to partial or extreme hearing loss, loss of ability to perceive timbre, so being able to separate between different instruments, particularly when the arrangements are very complex, or picking the vocals parts among the instrumental sections. And in some cases also the ability of separating spatially the music sources, so losing of a stereo perception of music. These factors, they can be influenced by lots of different hearing loss conditions. Some they are inherited, some they are age-related, some they are due to other factors like viruses or traumas. But basically, there's lots of different combinations and possibilities that can interfere with studio engineers' ability to produce work to a professional level. Sorry. Okay. So in this graph, for example, there's a statistical analysis of hearing loss due to age, also known as presbycusis, among musicians and music professionals. And it can clearly show that the percentage of individuals affected by hearing loss grow from about 1% at the age of 20 to 5 to 6% around 60 or 65 years of age. And obviously this affects studio engineers, as most of them, they work for many years in studio situations. Obviously they acquire a great depth of experience in creating great mixes, but then proportionally they start to lose certain sections of the hearing ability, so which creates issues. In this graph, for example, there's one of the most widely spread kind of situations with hearing loss, where there is a serious frequency notch around 4,000 kilohertz, which is, by the way, what I suffer from. And that seems to be due to the fact that the hearing pad and the hearing has got specific resonance frequencies that get affected the most in the band. So basically, audio engineers, once they have hearing loss issues, they start to use certain strategies. They can ask peers with a better hearing condition to support them in kind of frequency areas that they cannot really hear properly. They have to boost the sound levels in the studio. They work on selective frequency amplification to hear certain parts better than others. They mostly use DAW visual aids, and in certain cases also hearing aids, which come with their own kind of level of problems as well. So recent studies on the ability of music listeners and music professionals to perceive music properly using hearing aids, they came to a broad conclusion that they improve certain factors in terms of ability to listen, but they create other problems. The main problems are related to the high frequencies, which sound usually distorted, not very clear, tinny, and they tend to be harsh and sharp. Some of the solutions about perception of mixing through hearing aids have been suggested, like, for example, raising the lead vocal to instrumental level ratio, trying to move the frequency spectrum of the mix towards higher frequencies, and separating the different frequencies a bit more to avoid kind of smearing effects and masking effects. So basically, hearing aids, they prove to work pretty well from one side, but not very well from other sides. Furthermore, most of professionals in audio, they tend to be, they're not keen on using, technical aids to be able to perceive what they're doing. So basically, my first year, I intend to do a research which involves an online recruitment of studio engineers who want to, with hearing loss, who want to volunteer in discussing the issues with mixing, what they actually use in studio, and generally the whole process to understand if there are certain suggestions that are valid overall to improve their ability to mix, And at the same time, to try to compare, to run a study based on audio stems, where the studio engineers themselves mix audio based on their own ability to perceive music, rather than what they reckon that the general public out there will be able to perceive. One of the possible factors of the studio would be, for example, to ask hearing impaired mixing engineers to create mixes, and at the same time asking engineers with a normal hearing level to use hearing loss simulators to see if they can be comparable, in order to then understand if hearing loss simulators that can be used correctly to create mixes for people who suffer from hearing loss. In this last page, there's basically a scheme of my project, which is what's been discussed. The participants will be recruited through a JISC online questionnaire. The ones selected will be provided with STEM-based studio mixing tracks. They will work on specific mixings. There will be interviews online through semi-structured questionnaires and conversations. The final findings will be semantically analyzed through in vivo, and the conclusions will be used to progress into the second year study, which will be focusing more on what can actually be done in terms of applications in the music engineers with hearing loss community. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. Has anybody got a question?
It's not really a question. It's more if you had a slide and you had an audio sound for hearing impairment and for normal hearing.
Sorry.
In the initial slides, is it possible to play to before one of the early ones? Before? Yeah, that's it.
Oh, do you want to play that?
Yeah, if
Sorry, I was not sure if the audio was on it, but no, sorry, it's not getting it.
okay,
Sorry about that.
maybe outside here.
I played them on the lower presentation, so
Okay.
they would be a recording.
And I was also wondering if you have some kind of control group with the questionnaires, if you have some indication of the sample of people that you will be targeting with the
Sorry, I
questionnaire.
cannot hear you very well.
With the sample of the is this not working? Okay. So for the methodology, you mentioned you will recruit online. I was wondering how will you structure the population that you will be interviewing? If there's some kind of, is there a control group? How are you going to sort of target them? Are they all in the same profession? Are they all facing similar difficulties?
I'm just finishing the questionnaire now, so they'll be recruited by age group and gender and professional experience in number of years, specific skills in the studio, either if they are a mixing engineer, a master engineer, or producer, mixing engineer. There's it's a bit of a gray area, that one, but the kind of genre of music that they specialize in, if there is one or more. And then there are some kind of general question about the hearing loss condition. So I think that I will focus on the mild to moderate section, because if you go into extreme loss conditions, there's a completely other set of problems that have to be analyzed. And also the percentage of people who work in audio engineering who have that level of hearing loss is very small. But, if I focus on the area where people have, 10, 15 dB of loss, and there's a high number of individual participate, then I should be able to get to certain conclusions that are possibly general about what's happening and what could be done. And also about how they mix keeping in mind their ability to perceive music. And after that, once you compare the results in terms of maybe frequency spectrum, or even just the way they use, studio plugins and equipment, to the kind of mixes they would do if they had to be published into Spotify or whatever, then an analyst will be able to understand, if there are very dramatic differences or, it's just about certain nuances. And then later on focus in specific aspects like, they use compression in a different way, or, they reduce reverb, reverb on the tracks. What's the ratio between, I don't know, main vocal and back vocals? There's lots of different aspects that might end up being tweaked. But I think that is something that I found out at the end of the, the online questionnaire and the semi-structured interview.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just a quick one. You mentioned you were going to do semantic analysis. What do you plan to do for that? Have you got a quantitative method for that, or is it just going to be purely qualitative?
I'm going to record and transcribe all the interviews and conversations that we'll have with the volunteers, and then insert into in vivo and kind of extract some common aspects that have been discussed. And then from there, I guess, make a statistic about which points are more important in changing or, improving in terms of their work in studio with hearing loss. It might actually come out that, there's a wide number of factors that can influence that, or maybe that they're all pretty disjointed. I won't know until I gather all the information and see what comes out in terms of, frequency of, aspects mentioned. And so.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo.
Thank you.
Have a good. All right, so our final presentation is going to be Addie Beckwith. Again, you have to just give me 30 seconds to switch over presentations. So talk amongst yourselves for a second. Okay, we've got yes. Okay, thank you. So our final talk is Addie Beckwith. So over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Addie Beckwith. My research title is Aural Diversity and Sensory Emotion Regulation and its implications for mental health, which is really long, but I will hopefully explain that to you. My supervisors are Rob Bendall from the School of Health and Society and Duncan Williams. And the plan for this presentation is to briefly introduce myself and then talk in more detail about my planned research. There we go. So a little bit of background about me with the pink hair. I took redundancy from a high street bank about 14 years ago and joined the NHS. That's my background. I come from health. I've worked in a variety of mental health settings, including inpatient, community, forensic, specialist services, so learning disability, autism, and also research and development. I've also been our team's EDI champion, that's equality, diversity and inclusion. I spent 3 years working clinically as an associate psychological practitioner, lovely NHS job title, working in GP surgeries. My role involved providing brief one-to-one therapeutic interventions and providing group wellbeing and resilience workshops. My specialist focus when I was a practitioner was providing support for universal difficulties. So that's things we all experience in life, for example, poor sleep, grief and bereavement. I am a music lover, as you can tell by what I usually wear around the place. I was a failed musician. I used to play violin. I got to grade 5. I was in the orchestra until I was 18. They didn't kick me out, even though I wasn't very good, but I did stop when I left school. I love going to live gigs, particularly rock, grunge, industrial, metal, the noisier the better. I don't go as much as I used to. I do have to wear ear defenders when I go now. I've kept all of my CDs, I collect vinyl, my Spotify playlist is growing every day, and it's fair to say that I do listen to music every day. Jo will attest to the fact that when she comes in the morning, I turn my music off, so it's not to disturb. I'm a mature student. I went to the Open University in 2015. From there, I went to the University of Portsmouth for my master's. Both my master's and my undergrad research has all been in the field of mental health and well-being. And for my master's specifically, it was around the barriers to autistic adults accessing mental health services. I am passionate about mental health and well-being, and I bring my personal experiences to my work and to my research. That includes hearing loss in both ears and horrible permanent tinnitus. I am neurodivergent, and I also have experience of accessing mental health services myself. This is all relevant to the research, so this is why I'm giving you the background. So that's me. Hi, and now I will talk in more depth about my planned research. So, oral diversity and sensory emotion regulation and its implications for mental health. Big long title. What does that mean? Well, for myself and for my research, I'm talking about individuals with hearing loss, hearing impairment. 10 years ago, it was estimated that about 10% of the population was affected, with 1 in 10 adults aged 40 to 69 having a substantial hearing loss, hearing impairment, and over 25% of older adults having an impairment that is disabling. In 2020, it was reported that 1 in 5 children experienced the symptoms of hearing loss before they reached age 18. I've used those figures, but alarmingly, actually new figures coming out from the RNID, that's the Royal National Institute for Deaf People, say that this is getting worse. And actually it's around 1 in 3 adults are deaf, have hearing loss, or have tinnitus, or maybe one or more of those things. That's actually over 18 million people in the UK. So why is this a concern? Well, differences in hearing can have an impact on an individual's mental health and well-being. Hearing loss in adults is associated with lower quality of life and higher levels of depressive symptoms. Improving quality of life for individuals with hearing loss, hearing impairment is an NHS England and Department of Health priority, and it's also one of the wants of the deaf and hard of hearing community. So where does music come in? Well, at some point, all of you have probably said something along the lines of, "Hey Alexa, play my Bad Day playlist. play my happy tunes. Probably on a day like today, you might do that when you get home. It's accepted that music can provoke an emotional response in the listener, whether that's a happy response or a sad response. There's an extensive body of research that's looked at the therapeutic benefits of music on emotion regulation. However, the potential benefits for people with hearing loss and hearing impairment are understudied. And also, people with hearing differences are often excluded from participation in studies. One of the studies going on right now had, if you have a hearing loss, we're sorry, you can't be a participant. We also know that whilst being very useful in improving the ability to recognise and hear speech over background noise, the use of hearing aids can have a negative impact on the music listening experience. And that was something that Lorenzo illustrated in his presentation. So how can we use music to impact the mental health and well-being of individuals with hearing loss and hearing impairment? I plan to use a mixed methods approach. I've already commenced my literature review, and I've planned 3 studies to look at the effectiveness of music use on promoting emotional regulation for individuals with hearing loss and hearing impairment, and to look at better understanding their subjective experiences, their relationship to music, and its perceived emotional impact. Qualitative and quantitative data will be collected, for example, through the use of surveys, experience sampling, psychophysiological data, interviews and focus groups. Throughout the research, I will be seeking community feedback and public and patient involvement. So then what? Well, I could talk about all the journals that I want to publish in, all the conferences that I want to go to, all the countries that I want to go to. But actually, going back to my passion for mental health and well-being, remember the 18 million people that I spoke to you about? I'm most interested in thinking about how this research might have an impact on them. So, as well as doing my research, I'm also calling out to you guys and the wider community to help. And if there's anything that you know or you can assist me with, I'm looking at you right now, Becky, please do let me know. Thank you very much. If there's any questions.
Okay, any questions? No, nothing at all. We're all stunned. No, nobody? Have we got any questions online? Sorry, I haven't actually checked. If anyone has a question online, feel free to type it in the chat. No? I think that's it. In that case, thank you very much, Addie. It's so wonderful. We can't say anything.